Welcome to another double feature of the Happy Butcher. We have two female deers, one about 50 kilos, another 30 kilos. They were caught by the local hunter with a wire trap and speared through the heart. I guess they didn't bother to use any guns on these. It looks like, the wire trap, it struggled and basically ripped off one of its legs. You often see quite a few deer in the mountains with only 3 legs hopping around. It's kind of a sad sight to see, but kind of a casualty of war with the struggle between farmers and vermin like these. I don't really like to think of them as vermin, they're cute animals, but there's nothing wrong with eating cute animals. Why do we only want to eat the ugly ones, And I think they're all fair game as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, so I had a little bit of a conversation with the local hunter, and he's saying the people around his area, they get a lot of wild meat, so they usually don't go to the store to buy any meat from the grocery store. But with all the hormones and steroids being injected into the animals, they actually prefer wild meat because it doesn't have all that junk inside and it's more natural for you. Probably a lot of carcinogens that'll give you cancers and all kinds of weird stuff. I heard reports, definitely not endorsed by a big industry, especially the meat industry, that there is a very strong connection between meat and basically cancers and many related diseases. Of course, the industry won't let any studies regarding that going out to protect the industry, so the business will fuel the economy and give people to think whatever they want them to think. So nobody's going to push the idea that eating a lot of meat, or especially farmed meat, is not really healthy for you, even though it may be. Okay. Ooh, this is going to be a tricky leg, as there is no leg. It's a little stubby. Yeah, so he said anyways, neighbors don't really need to buy meat, and anyways, they don't really trust meat, especially from abroad, because they don't know what's going in it, and sounded like something really big fell in the forest, like a tree or something. I heard it again. That couldn't be a coincidence. I wonder what that could be. Sometimes you have hunters going out shooting in the middle of the night, but that wasn't a gun. It sounded like a large tree branch or something breaking. But in the middle of the night. It's something you don't really want to hear. It's like a horror movie, you know, it's just creepy. I used to be scared coming out here a little bit. I mean, it feels like a horror movie, you know, out in the woods in the middle of the forest. I'm just glad there are no bears out here. That would really freak me out. But I stopped believing in ghosts a long time ago, you know. Anyways, okay, without any leverage, this is just a pain in the ass to cut. There we go. Okay. Yeah, the only visitors I've ever had out here, badgers and raccoons. I don't really see them much anymore. I don't know why. Yeah, anyways. Food industry practices just gotta, you know, there's nothing better than natural food. And, you know, these guys, they have hardly any carbon footprint. They're just eating what's around them in the mountains. There's no feed, there's no hormones, there's no injections. You basically know what they're eating. These guys, they love to eat fresh sprouted bamboo shoots, and I think that's like basically the majority of their diet. When you look at their poo, it's really, really green looking. They love the fresh bamboo sprouts, and bamboo just grows so fast. They just basically have a never-ending supply of food. That's why their population can just explode like it has been. I mean, in some of the areas where my hunters prosper, it's incredible. It's like just a few square kilometers, there's hundreds of deers in a few hundred square kilometers. I mean, you can imagine the amount of food that must be available in those areas. It's got to be massive. And, you know, this area is, Japan's basically like tropical kind of environment, so it rains a lot, so it makes sense. There's going to be a lot of foliage that the deers can eat, so. And if things get hard and they have nothing to eat, trees like these, the Japanese cedar trees, they could just freaking eat the bark right off the tree and digest that. In the hunters' areas in northern Kyushu, a lot of the trees' barks are eaten, and unfortunately that can damage or kill the trees. So, but I'm a bit further south from a butcher, and you don't see any damaged bark. You only see maybe mud that the boars rubbed against the trees on. So, you know, by looking at the forest around the areas, you can kind of tell what kind of animals inhabit, you know, mud holes for boars and bark eaten by deers. So they definitely show a pretty large impact on the environment. And if you're looking for the signs, it's not too difficult to find it. Yeah, but you are what you eat, you know, and people are going really natural these days. I'm surprised that, you know, wild meats aren't more popular. I guess, you know, the big problem with wild meats is it's kind of a hit and miss situation. It's not a consistent kind of protein. The seasons change, what they eat, mating times. It's just the way they're butchered, the way they're killed. And sometimes you get meat that just doesn't taste too good, and you know, and if you have one bad experience with meat, you might just be turned off and avoid it. And I think that's what happens a lot. And it doesn't help that the fact that deers are cute, and you had the Bambi movie made, and nobody wants to eat Bambi, right? But okay. Bambi's not good for the environment as far as farmers are concerned, so unfortunately Bambi and her mom gotta go. So, you know, things gotta be done. It's gotta be done what's gotta be done. Yeah. Alright, sounds like a 50 kilogram boar. You can see it's quite bloody around the chest area because it's where it got stabbed, so, well, it's a lot of blood. So you do get a reddening of the meat around the area, especially the legs. And if you're going to use it for human consumption, that wouldn't be any good. Because you got white blood cells repairing the area, and you have this weird translucent muck that's kind of around the meat, and that doesn't taste very good. So, yeah, definitely spear wounds is not something good for wild meat industry for humans. Of course, for dogs, they don't give a shit, so there it is. All right. This is another female. Still warm. Huh. I guess it wasn't dispatched that long ago. I mean, maybe early afternoon. And when it's still warm, it's a lot easier to cut as opposed to when it's cold, so definitely a plus. There we go. Anyways, it was a pretty hard day today. Doing some English teaching and teaching at preschools, and the preschool head teacher kind of said to me, oh, you know, next month I'm retiring, so planning to close the school. You know, it kind of sucks. It's a place where I go to teach and make some little extra income. And, you know, it's disappointing for the kids. Won't see them much anymore, and they got to move. So, but, you know, nothing you can be done about it if the teacher, the main owner of the tiny preschool, is going to retire. That was a bit of a bummer. But, you know, it is what it is. And there'll all be other preschools out there. And I was teaching another few classes of elementary school kids. One class in particular, it's got a lot of wild eggs in one basket. You know, some like total ADHD kids, and definitely autistic kids. They just can't focus and pay attention, and getting them to stay in line is a real challenge, and it tests your patience and spiritual nature, I guess you can say. But it's always good to, you know, have that challenge so you can learn to be focused. I mean, if you're always in a relaxed situation and trying to be spiritual, that's kind of easy. But if you got kids pouncing up and down like they're addicted to Adderall or something, it definitely challenges you. And, you know, it's good spiritual training. Oh, you can see the steam coming off of that. Look at that. It only feels like maybe 6 hours old. I don't know. This was caught in the morning. He called me in the morning, like at 10 or 11 a.m. So it's 12 hours. 12 hours. This stuff's still warm. Wow. I guess the afternoon was kind of warm, so maybe it didn't cool down that much. It's still cold at night, though. Anywho, yeah, it was a kind of a long day. Ooh. And butchering at night. I try not to analyze my day much anymore. When it's done, it's done. Like water under the bridge, you know? And the next day is a completely full day of new things, and you just can't let those things linger. I think the best example of that situation in the spiritual book I read It was a story of old Japan, when there's a spear wound. Went right in there, pierced the heart and lungs. Old Japan, when they still had, samurais and monks walking around and geishas and stuff. So the story goes, it was after a heavy rain, and a geisha, or whatever, woman in a nice kimono, anyways, trying to cross the road, and she couldn't cross the road, otherwise she'd get her kimono all mucked up. And there were two monks who saw this. One was the teacher monk and one was a student monk. The teacher monk saw the woman on the side of the road and said, "Hey, hop on my shoulders, I'll give you a piggyback ride across the road." Quite taken aback by this, he watched his teacher carry the pretty young woman with the kimono across the road. And well, after they dropped her off, they were on their way. But during all this time, the student was thinking about his teacher carrying the young woman across the road, because that's not very characteristic of monks. They're supposed to be conservative, not all gentlemanly like such. So he kept thinking about it and thinking he wants to say something to his teacher about his very uncharacteristically non-monkish behavior. And a few hours into their walk, when they're getting close to their destination, he couldn't take it anymore, and he said to his teacher, Why did you carry that girl on your shoulders across the road? Us monks, we don't do that kind of thing. We're supposed to be conservative, and it's very uncharacteristic of us to do such things." And the teacher said, "I dropped that girl off several hours ago, but it appears as if you are still carrying her on your back. What does this all mean? Well, the fact that the apprentice was thinking about it means he was still carrying the burden of the woman on his shoulders. And it wasn't the teacher who was carrying the pretty girl across the road, or the woman with the kimono across the road, but it was his student. He was carried not physically, but mentally, in his own mind. And in some ways that could be a much bigger burden that lasts much longer. So it just shows how all of us are carrying these heavy burdens. We've had our own lives, habits and characteristics. Maybe they can't be thrown away overnight, of course. Easier said than done. But I think part of going down the spiritual and enlightening path is to let go of these attachments, let go of our memories. Whatever's done is done. And I guess that's how we are able to find more peace and, I guess, enlightenment, as it would be said. So basically have a really short-term memory? I don't know. But I think it's more than that. It's just, being about the present moment is being in the moment, not in your mind about other moments, or moments that could be or have been. And it's just all about presence. The thing that a lot of spiritual teachers teach you, particularly my favorite, like Eckhart Tolle, and other Indian sages I read. It seems India has a lot better grip on the spirituality thing than than most Eastern or Western philosophers do, spiritual teachers do. They're just like the Michael Jordans of spirituality. I don't know how to describe it, but, you know, it's just, they got it. So if you want to be more spiritual and find a guru, a lot of people do go to India to pursue that, but it's not 100% necessary. But I guess being in the presence of such people all the time is beneficial. But the point is to not realize that there are people, not realize there's a difference between you and others. So looking to others for knowledge just is counterintuitive. You just have to realize that the knowledge is in you and you are not different than the guru. To see a difference between you and a guru is, it's not realizing the truth. You're not getting any closer. You know, there's a saying, you can travel the whole world looking for the elusive white elephant of happiness and enlightenment and knowledge, and you follow those white elephant's tracks around the world. You start at your home, it's outside your house, you follow it to another country, you follow it all around the world, and in the end, it's going to take you back to where you started. It's going to take you back to your own home. And then you realize, well, it was here all along. You never really needed to travel the whole entire world. And we have another fetus. Okay. And that's what, I guess, spiritual enlightenment is all about. Oh, that's a big one. Oh, not really. I don't know. You need to go no further than your own backyard. It's always here. It always was. It always will be. It's always yours. And to think it was somewhere else, well, that's just not true. I left two fetuses here, and something took it. So something likes what is being offered here. Anyways, let's take another look at reality and not judge and accept it for what it is. And there it is. That's reality. I mean, life and death are just one and the same, you know? Life is death and death is life. There's no good or bad, there's just opposites. When you look at the whole totality of life and death, it kind of cancels out, you know? And it just is what it is. I think humans try to separate it, but I don't think there is any difference. So, sure, keep yourself from dying, but don't run away and be scared of it. Because if you're gonna live, you're also gonna die, so be at peace with that. Anyways, the body, I mean, not the consciousness. I guess that's where we want to be. But while we're here, sure, you want to do what you keep yourself healthy and alive, happy, entertained, friendship, love, work, whatever that may be. Oof. Okay. lot of blood in this cavity. Ooh. Ooh, what a sound. And what a smell. I'm totally used to it, but for a new person, this would be just the grossest thing. It doesn't smell as bad as shit, but it's where shit comes from, you know? There we go. Intestines. Spleen. I enjoy vegetarian food. I was a vegetarian once, believe it or not. Only problem is, after I eat vegetarian food, I'm starving. I mean, I don't know, it's just not enough calories or something. So I would have to eat like 2 or 3 times more vegetables or carbs just to get the energy I need from just a tiny bit of animal protein. I mean, geez, you'd have to eat 5 packs of tofu, probably just to get the same amount of protein you would need from just a few 100 grams of meat. Even beans. When I was on a strict vegetable bean protein only diet, I would need to eat about 200 or 300 grams of beans. I made that to a shake in the morning. And it's just too difficult to eat it, so I just had to wolf it down in a shake. And that kind of gave me enough energy for the day. But when, you know, my working style, geez Louise, it's like I'm working 16, 17-hour days sometimes. It's just not enough, especially when you're using your brain and like teaching English. You just start to go into a coma at the end of the night, and sometimes words don't come out of your mouth, and I was like, oh, I gotta start eating meat again. If I had a little bit more slow-paced lifestyle, I could, I guess, be purely maybe vegetarian, but you know, if there's meat available, especially meat this good and ecological, you just gotta take it. I mean, this meat, there's no feed from these animals. They just eat whatever the heck's in the mountains. There's no food source that is bought or farmed from them. It rains, it grows, they eat. There's nothing more natural than that. Boars eat bugs and all kinds of stuff, earthworms. Badgers gorge on the earthworms, they're everywhere around here. And they get fat off of that. It's like super, super pure and ecological food. Almost no carbon footprint. Why isn't that stuff promoted? I mean, well, this stuff, this is primo shit, you know? Just a few big deers like this. It's enough meat in your freezer for a year. You don't have to worry about animals being abused in the factories like you see on those videos. There's no abuse until they get caught in a wire trap or just get shot in the head by a hunter, and it's over. It's a hell of a lot more humane than poor animals in a factory. My opinion, anyways. It does have some stinky points, and if you got a good cook, you know, they can cook anything. usually most people think tastes like shit. I think that's a really important thing. Anyone can take a nice piece of steak and do a horrible job cooking and it'll still taste great, but yeah, when you have meat that's, I don't know, organs or stuff that might need a little bit more processing tastes good. Yeah, you do need some talent. I understand. Maybe most people don't want to have to go through that. But the reward is awesome, you know? Getting some great meat like that. Oh boy, this back strap just looks too good. I'll take some home later. I haven't been eating too much wild meat lately. I don't know, I've just been too busy. When you cook this stuff and put it in the small slices after you freeze it, oh yeah, it tastes great. It's good stuff. This stuff is way too tendony, but I would think if you put it in a pressure cooker for a long time, it'll taste fine. Very tendony. Right. I heard of an interesting way or theory to curb the, for example, deer population in Japan, and there's some people that have some really radical ideas. And what they said was, let the deer overpopulate, and naturally the population, as it overpopulates, will be diseased and all kinds of problems within their own overpopulated culture, and naturally they'll die out. I don't know if that's true, but if it's anything like humans, maybe there are problems with having some overpopulation. Oh, I heard Elon Musk today say in a podcast, the Earth could physically support 10 times the population of today. So all this fear-mongering about how people are the cancer of the world and destroying the world, he says, is bullshit. I think that has a lot of validity. Elon Musk has a very non-biased, realistic, play-by-numbers approach and logical approach to issues and problems in the world. And, you know, he sees things as they are, so a lot of people admire him and appreciate for that. He doesn't care if people bad talk him, just doesn't give a shit. Most people aren't that way. They don't want to be talked bad about. They want to make things right, you know? But make things right by lying about it doesn't make much sense. The long-term repercussions of that is a lot worse, so you gotta stick to your guns and be who you are, naturally. And not change for everyone in the world, because if you do, care for everyone else in the world, you're gonna forget to care about yourself. Heard Dave Choi, the famous artist, his friend was Anthony Bourdain's friend, you know, the famous cook and food entertainer who killed himself. Bourdain just was completely depressed and sad and not happy, even though everyone in the world basically was always telling him how great he was and how they loved him so much. But I guess the self-hatred he had going on in his mind, which he related with David Choi, I don't know, resonated with him, and they both couldn't really figure out how to stop that feeling of depression and dread and unhappiness, perpetual unhappiness, no matter what they achieved. No matter how much fame they got, no matter how much money they made, nothing ever satisfied them. Because I guess that's how they are, just perpetual non-satisfaction, always wanting more. Can't always want more. You gotta learn to be happy with what you have. But if you are, then you might not want anything, you know? You might not want to progress or do anything that'll be of any use to people. So, I don't know, it seems that being perpetually unhappy, unsatisfied is a great way to progress. But at the same time, we don't want to be like that. So it's kind of some weird catch-22 that goes on. Oof. You know, you want to be happy and satisfied, but you're never happy with being satisfied. So you're just always like chasing your tail. It's kind of a sad way to live, I think. It's just how some people are made. And, you know, I guess maybe they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. You just can't do that. It's either one or the other. So if you're never satisfied, then just don't deny it, you know. Live with it and accept it. I think that's the biggest thing, is acceptance. You just got to accept who you are, however you are. Otherwise, you're just gonna go crazy. I mean, I guess the best example I could give is my dad. He was not an easy person. He wasn't the worst person, but he was not an easy person. Sorry, I gotta put this chain down. One down. Oof. Okay. I remember when my sister told me a story of my dad pissing off one of her coworkers, and the coworkers told my sister that our dad can eat shit and die. And I was like, wow, what the hell did my dad say to this person? But, you know, it didn't surprise me. My dad had a deep, deep distrust for people and anything, considering he grew up during the war, World War II, and occupied Manchuria. That was invaded after the war by China and Russia. We saw people die and all kinds of horrible shit. Yeah, he didn't have a trust for humanity. He grew up in war and hell. He served in the Vietnam War, so the type of person that was created was uh, someone who was born in war and hell, which is not going to be a very kind and nice person, because I think the people who survive in those situations are not very kind and friendly. They're usually selfish and self-serving, and sometimes I guess that's how people got to be to survive, especially in wars. So anyways, I didn't like the way my dad behaved a lot around other people. He was really selfish and self-serving. He cared about his family a lot. He always did his best to take care of us. But if I were to label him as an animal, I would say he's a snake, you know. You get too close to him, he's gonna bite. And so many times, if he bit, I would get upset. Why did he do that? And he shouldn't do that. He should be this way. He should be this kind of father. He should be more attentive. And that was eating me a lot, you know. It was eating me, thinking he's got to be a different way. He's got to be like this other guy. But he wasn't, you know. He was who he was. So how do you accept that? You know, how do you live with that? So I just had to equate him to basically an animal. You know, so if he's a snake and you're playing with a snake and it bites you, can you really be mad at a snake, right? You know the story. Woman takes a injured snake home, nurses it back to health, and then later when the snake is better, bites her. And as the woman lay dying, she asked the snake, I saved your life, I brought you back to health and you bit me. Why did you do that? The snake said, hey lady, you knew I was a snake. And she died. I guess, you know, the moral of the story is it's a snake's nature to bite. It's what a snake does. It's how it is. So how can you be mad at a snake for biting? How can you be mad at a bunny for jumping? It's just what it does, you know. And if you don't accept that, it's not the snake's problem, that's your problem. So, when my dad bit like a snake, I was like, well, that's just who he is, it's just how he is. So, think of him as one of those predatory animals, I guess. Helped me to accept him for how he was. So when the snake bit and rattled, I was like, well, yeah, that's what he does, you know. And you only got one dad, so just accept it, you know. So all of my siblings deal with that situation very differently. Some of them accepted, some didn't. And I think the ones that didn't and always held a contempt for my dad, I think that shit eats at you, you know. It'll eat at you, and eventually it'll devour you. And that's just not the way to live. We just have to accept everything and accept it for how it is and what it is. Just like that snake who bit the lady. Of course, if she knew that snake was a snake and accepted it for what it was, took precautions, because it does bite. She could still find a way to coexist with it. But I guess because she thought she took care of it, maybe the snake owed her and wouldn't bite her. Well, that's just wishful thinking. That's just something in her own mind, you know? So to truly love is to accept. I think that's true love. Whether it be a parent or a spouse or a friend. And you know, unfortunately for my dad, a lot of people just, you know, can't stand to be around him, can't stand listening to him. So they separate from him, you know. I moved here to Japan, so did my brother. We all kind of separated from my dad except my sister. And she was kind of left taking care of him, you know. And for me and my brothers, I guess, the best way to deal with a snake was just to not be near it, because whenever you're near it, you're gonna get bit. So, except for, you know, vacation time when he came and we took care of him, which was a short time. You know, we put up with it. But everyday living situation, you know, it's kind of tough. So I guess our way of dealing with our snaky dad was to just stay away from him so he doesn't bite, you know. And I think that can be really lonely for a snake when everyone separates from you because of your nature. And makes me think, did my dad ever accept his nature for how he was? I don't really think he thought about it much, just did what he did, and things happened as they happened. I think, you know, in that sense, my dad wasn't very self-conscious of what was happening. He was so connected to his mind and thinking. He was his mind and thinking, you know. He couldn't be anything else. He couldn't separate. I guess the advantage a lot of us have now is all the spiritual information. Now, this is a bladder and it's just filled with bloody piss. I guess he suffered for a little while. Yeah, we have all this access to information. And for self-improvement, Dad didn't have that much. There wasn't a trend for that kind of thing, you know, so I guess he never got into it. My brothers threw me spiritual books, and that really went a long way in my spiritual path from high school. My dad was just at school, just being racially taunted and fucked with all the time, and it just made him an angry person. Not to mention, he was a court translator, a criminal court translator, so he saw the worst of people, and that couldn't have helped. Day in and day out, we see the worst of people. And it naturally, you just start expecting the worst of the worst out of people, because that's what you see every day. So naturally, yeah, I became kind of a negative person. But anyways, you know, it wasn't about how my dad was and how, if he changed, maybe I would have been better. It just has nothing to do with it. It's just, the problem is only within your own mind. The problem is solely yours. It has just nothing to do with anything on the outside. Just like the geisha and the monk story. The kimono girl and the kimono and the monk story. Everything's just all in our heads, you know? And we gotta recognize that. We gotta recognize that we're thinking about these things. If you can't recognize your thinking, you're not self-conscious, you can't realize when you're angry, you're just angry. there's no stopping it. You're a wrecking ball. So meditation helps a lot with that. I mean, what I do is at night to calm my thoughts, I just sit still and I listen to the thoughts in my mind, and I actually repeat it out loud, which is kind of weird, you know. A lot of the thoughts that are going in my mind is just repeated self-deprivation, angry thinking, and irritation. So when you say it out loud, the thoughts that are going in your mind, they're not really subconscious anymore. They're taken to more of the conscious level. And the more you follow those thoughts, suddenly they just disappear. Like shining a spotlight on a deer or something like that. As soon as you shine a spotlight on it, it might look at you a little bit, but then it'll soon turn around and run away. Those thoughts just scatter once you shine a mental spotlight on it. So that's kind of my recommended mental technique, meditation technique, is to shine a spotlight on your thoughts. Just like sit really still in the dark, in the quiet at home, and listen to your thoughts. And when the thoughts come, like mumble them or say them out loud or whisper them. And that's a good step, you know, to becoming self-conscious of your subconscious or the mental mind stream. And when you can do that and shine a light, they can just shut off like that, or certainly quiet down. Just don't indulge, you know. Don't indulge the thoughts. Just shine a light on it. Don't judge it. Otherwise you'll get into an argument in your own mind, and you'll feed the fire, so to speak, and give those thoughts room to grow, and you'll get all stressed out. Just listen to the thoughts and don't judge it. And just listen. Like a therapist. So I think it was around high school. I was really mentally unstable and going insane. And told my parents I was thinking of hurting other people. I think I was on my way to become like a Columbine, you know. And I dropped out of school for a year, and they sent me to a therapist. And I was like, well, nothing wrong with me. I mean, there is something wrong with me, but I don't know what it is. I just have this anger pent up, and I'm so angry at things, and I don't know what's going on, you know? And that's all I really told my therapist. And she just sat there and, not judging, just listened to me. And I started just, you know, she'd tell me, how was your week? I was like, oh, whatever, you know, nothing special. And she asked me questions and listened to me. So that was kind of a weird experience for me, I guess, being in a typical Asian family. The only thing my parents really asked me was, what do you want to eat? What do you want to do? Let's go here, let's go there. They didn't really pay attention to me emotionally, talk to me about my feelings, and I didn't know how to express my feelings. I'm sure a lot of Asians could relate to that. So I'm going to these therapies, and I'm learning to communicate. I'm learning to talk. I'm learning what it's like to be listened to. Because when I'm with my dad, I only listen. He talks, I listen, that's it. There's no catchball going on. It's just a one-way thing. He machine gun talks me. And then, oopsie, the conversation's over. So I think the therapist realized that. And she brought my dad in one day. And my dad started machine gun talking her. Oh, my son did this. He did that. He's crazy. He needs help. Doctor, help him, He's crazy. Oh, God, this is horrible. And the therapist tried to have a conversation with him, talk to him, and he just didn't know how to accept words and relay them back. He just basically didn't know how to communicate. And while watching this, it was just kind of baffling to me. I was like, well, maybe it's not me who's so screwed up, but I'm learning from this guy. And, well, I haven't learned how to communicate, and neither does he. And that's not good. I'm just keeping all my feelings and emotions pent up and not expressing anything. So the therapist was like, whoa, I think your dad should come in for treatment too. Dad was like, what? There's like nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. My son's the one that needs help. He's crazy. So eventually the therapist got him to come in and do therapy sessions on his own. And I guess he came under the guise of helping me. But he started taking medications for bipolar disorder. And he took lithium, and so did I. So we were like a father-son mental health kind of situation. I guess because he was bipolar, yeah, it makes sense that I was bipolar too, right? So anyways, both started taking lithium. And, oh yeah, it was horrible. I mean, I was just zombified. Yeah, I didn't have the ups and downs like I used to. But I didn't feel anything. I mean, it's just like no ups and downs. It just felt like a zombie without any better words to explain it. But I just had no feelings, no emotions, no motivation. And it was just not a good way to live. I guess doing crazy stuff and hurting yourself maybe in a situation, those medicines might be good, but in my situation, it was not good. I can see how some treatments could lead to suicide because you just don't feel anything anymore. Anyways, my dad kept taking it, but I stopped. And I stopped when I came to Japan and I separated from my dad. And when I separated from my dad, my bipolarism symptoms kind of seemed to go away. I guess my empathetic nature, by being around my dad, kind of led to me being bipolar. I don't know. One of my brothers was engaged to a girl with depression, and soon my brother started showing symptoms of depression. It's just, the empathetic thing going on. You just kind of, you take on the same traits as the person you're with, Their soul impresses on you like that, so you become good like them or bad like them, and you absorb each other's traits. Just hope those are good traits, So, I mean, I wasn't completely better in Japan. I had a lot of problems. But I was a lot better than when I was back in LA. And being in the countryside was just a lot less people and a lot less congestion. It gives you a lot of opportunity and chance to work on yourself, And it was just so therapeutic being in the Japanese countryside where there's just no people and nothing, and you see like rice and crops growing around, fish in the little streams going by. You just see life everywhere. And I don't know, it's like seeing life and the cycles of life and the seasons, which you don't see in LA so much. You hardly see nature and life. It kind of makes you depressed, kind of being in those situations, you know? And when you get out in nature, it's healing. It's really healing just to see greens, the fresh air, and there's no limit of fresh air out here in the Japanese countryside. It's healing, you know? And I really healed out here. It's really good for my soul. Guess I'm not a city boy. When I was in the city, I would make it a thing to go out into the country, in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, to kind of reset myself from the city life. But now I'm living out basically near the middle of nowhere in the countryside. So I'm always healing, I guess, you know? I'm always kind of at peace. Oops, some people can't stand the countryside, but even growing up in the city, I just can't imagine not living in the countryside. It's like when you see too many people, it kind of devalues them. I don't know what it is. You get kind of nervous, you know? You feel like, well, if a couple of these people just disappeared and died, no one would notice. There's just too many of them anyways, you know? It's not a good way to think, but I know instinctually you kind of feel that. But when you're out here in the country, every person, everything, it's just few, you know? And you got to take care of your neighbors, and you got to take care of the people around you. Because there's so few. And everyone needs each other. You're not just some like cog in a big machine, but you're really individual, special, and important, and needed. And I really, really felt that out here, where there's few people and everyone needs each other to survive. So that was kind of a huge thing. For me anyways. I mean, I just think this is the way to live. But out here in Japan, just like every other country in the world, everyone's just migrating to the cities. It is easier in some senses. It's more fun, things to do, especially for young people, but I just don't think it's a natural way to live. Very unnatural way to live. Ooh. Running short in bags. So coming out here in the Japan countryside, it's probably the best thing that's happened to me. Oh yeah, most definitely. Meeting my wife, having a family. You just like fall into the rhythm of nature. That's the best way I could explain it. When you're in nature, you're just easier to fall into the rhythm of nature. When you're not in that rhythm of nature, it's easy to fall out of nature, and then a lot of weird, unnatural things start happening, you know? So it's really important to always have 2 feet on the ground, even though your head might be in space. You always got to have those 2 feet in the ground. You always got to be grounded in something. Never lose track of what's real and important. There's only so much a person needs, you know? Just need a few family members, we need a few friends. Yeah, we need some money for food. Maybe a little for entertainment, I don't know. You don't need much. And that should be enough, but I guess it's human nature to, oh, I didn't cut that one, to want more and more and more and more. I took the bones down, okay. And I guess more is like equated to like improvement, but I mean, come on. It's just, we can always get better, but it's no reason not to be satisfied with things. But I guess if you're satisfied with things, nothing improves. We were living better lifestyles than the king and queens of hundreds of years ago, yet we're still complaining about everything. It just shows, human nature is insatiable, It always wants more, and I guess that's good for feeling improvement and technological advances and making our lives easier, but to what extent, and at what cost? When is enough enough? And I think that's a really important question to ask. When is enough enough? Some people say it's never enough. Well, if you keep thinking like that, never satisfied, I think sooner or later it's going to get the best of you. And it's not a good way to live. Is there another? I only did one leg, okay. That's good. I mean, I would say I have enough where I am. Yet I would like a little bit more, Maybe some more income to go back to LA sometimes. That would be nice, but if I can't, I guess that's fine too. Not to get too upset about it. All my brothers and sisters, they go on pretty much international vacations every year. I haven't been in one in 5 or 6 years, but and I am, kind of jealous, I guess, of them. Wish I could do what they did, but I know it doesn't make people any happier just because they're doing that. You envy them, yeah, I guess, but they're not happy. That's for sure. If you go to Disneyland every year for the rest of your life, would it be more impactful to a person who's been to Disneyland only one time in their lives? If you go to Disneyland every year, it's just not special. It's just a regular thing, isn't it? But if you go once, just one time, it's going to be amazing. So kind of rationing, limiting ourselves like that is just so important, regulating, So, it sounds like a little bit different, but alcohol tolerance. You drink a beer for the first time and you're all drunk and you feel great. Next beer you have, you don't feel as good as before, so you drink 2 beers. It's nice drinking 2 beers for a while, and then you gotta drink more to get the same feeling, so you drink more beer, and it escalates, and next thing you know, you're an alcoholic. I don't have an alcoholic type of personality, an addictive type of personality, so, yeah, after my first drink, I take 2 drinks now, and then I stop. And I just kind of think of something else or do something else. And then I don't drink for a while, and then finally my tolerance goes down. And then that one beer can get me drunk again. And that's fine. I don't know why some people just can't stop, They want the same high as before. Well, if you want the same high as before, then stop for a while and then start again. What's wrong with that? I don't know. I don't have that addictive personality, so if I take heroin or cocaine or whatever, I don't think I'll ever get addicted. I'll just stop and maybe just make it a recreation thing, sometimes doing it, you know? But it's just best not to mess with that stuff. Stay away. Ugh. It's better to get high on life. Oof. Taste a good meal after you hadn't eaten for 24 hours. It's gonna be one amazing meal. Even if it's just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So like limiting and rationing yourself, isn't that kind of a key to happiness? Instead of overindulging, which, you know, everyone wants to do, which leads to obesity, perpetual unhappiness. It's all about rationing, you know. Eat a steak every day. It's not as great if you ate it sometimes. I've been working all day, butchering all night. I'm gonna get home at 3 a.m. I'm gonna be tired as hell. But boy, oh boy, I'm gonna sleep good. I'm gonna earn that sleep, and it's gonna be a wonderful sleep. And that's my high. It's my happiness. Experience something really regular as something great because of what you put yourself through. Anywho, we're all done for today. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I'll see you soon. Peace.